Let's look at another attack called a distributed denial of service attack, and we abbreviate this DDoS. Now, just like with a regular garden variety denial of service attack, strictly speaking, a distributed denial of service attack is any attack that deprives a legitimate user access to a resource. And the distributed part comes in from the fact that a distributed denial of service attack uses hundreds of hosts, or could even be thousands of hosts on the internet to attack the victim by flooding its link to the internet or depriving it of resources. So there's a couple ways the attack can actually take place. These distributed denial of service attacks are used by hackers to target government and business internet sites, and we'll talk more about that later. There's a increasing level of automation in these the tools used to control these computers. They can often be executed by script kiddies. Script kiddies are the kind of the lowest rung of attacker. One of these distributed denial of service attacks can result in a temporary loss of access to a given site, and this could lead to an associated loss in revenue and prestige. It looks bad if your internet site goes offline, as it were, for a while. If people can't get to it, it looks bad on your part. So we got a graphic here. Down here at the bottom, these are this particular graphic, which again comes from the old book, refers to this as agent systems. These are computers that are available to actually mount the attack. So somewhere up here at the top, you've got the attacker. Then you've got a lot of times there's a kind of a hierarchy here where the attacker directly controls some handler systems, and these in turn pass commands on out to the front line, as it were, these agent systems. So down here you could actually have thousands of computers involved in the that actually are available to attack another computer. So you know, your attack is directed here at the victim, and you know, you could do a SYN flood with a network like this. You could do you could basically just simply flood the wide area link to the victim with traffic. And these computers, these attacking computers here, the agent systems, tend to be they're computers that have been compromised by one method or another. So their IP numbers are varied, and that makes it hard to from the attacking or from the victim's end to block these. It's not like you can block a whole network like you could with a Smurf amplifier. If I was trying to think, if you recall the I had all of you actually read a paper on the Beagle virus, or the Beagle worm. One of the things that later copies of later variations of this did was to start installing botnet. Well, I'll tell you what a botnet is later. But the point is, there are various ways these computers are going to be compromised, including there's more and more viruses and worms as part of their infecting a computer, is to actually install some of this remote control software on it, so it can be controlled by the attacker up here. And a lot of times the control is actually via what we call internet relay chat. We'll talk about more about this later. So here's pretty much what you have. You have an attacker that's basically in control of hundreds, if not thousands, of computers that will can do a number of things. And the software that's actually running on these compromised computers is getting much more complicated, capable. In many cases, it will automatically update itself with new functionality provided by the attacker. So these distributed denial of service attacks from these type of networks are they're a pretty big deal. So here's some classic distributed denial of service tools and attack methods. These are the tools. This is software. That could be installed on your computer, etc. The tribal flood network was a biggie. It used flooding or attack methods. Could be a UDP flood, an ICOMP, a SYN, Smurf. These are all different things that was possible. TFN 2K is an improvement on the tribal flood network. Let me erase that. I don't really like what I did there. These are more classic methods, and these variations of this still actually happen. Modern distributed denial of service attacks. A lot of times nowadays we refer to these as botnets. So large networks of compromised computers are often referred to as botnets. Here's a link on Wikipedia that will get you a lot of background on the whole botnet phenomenon, which personally I think this is really scary. Botnets are really scary. And here's the reason that I think these things are so successful. More and more, the internet reaches more and more people these days, people that aren't very computer savvy. So you've got large networks of people connecting their computers to high-speed networks such as cable access networks or DSL networks. So you've got high bandwidth, and you've got people that aren't terribly computer savvy or security savvy. So these computers are typically not well patched. The typical user doesn't understand that you don't want to open up just any email attachment that someone sends to you. So thousands of these computers are compromised. So they're sitting there, they're on all the time, they're on high-speed networks, and they're under the control of an attacker. It's all very scary, really, to me. And again, these networks are often controlled via IRC. And what will happen, you start your computer up. This starts up the remote control software, which opens up an IRC channel without you even knowing it. So this remote control software is sitting there waiting for commands to do whatever the attacker or the bot herder. It's another term that you see more and more now. In this case, we refer to this as a bot herder. So this is just one example of modern distributed denial of service attacks. Very scary. Now, what can you do? The first couple things here are all about trying to protect your computers. First thing you do is install latest security patches from software vendors and the producer of your OS to keep your computers from being compromised and being made part of a botnet. You should also have antivirus software and keep it updated. From a corporate standpoint, well, actually from a home standpoint too, firewalls are a good idea, and you should look into blocking unauthorized IRC traffic. And these are all things you can do to protect your computers. Filtering inbound and outbound is always a good idea for a number of reasons, not necessarily as a distributed denial of service countermeasure. Because if you think about what's going on here, this is another one of those examples where you can be attacked and your vulnerability has nothing to do with what we refer to as a classic vulnerability, or I would refer to as a classic, whereby there's some programming error or some configuration error in either your operating system or your applications. These distributed denial of service attacks use compromised computers just basically to generate enough traffic to overwhelm your connection to the internet or to overwhelm the ability of your computers to answer requests. So you can do everything right and still get clobbered by one of these attacks, which is unfortunate and also very scary. You can, however, do the best you can to keep your computers from becoming part of one of these networks. And if everybody did their job, there would be a whole lot fewer computers out there that could be compromised and basically taken control of.